everybody. Welcome to the P Video Horror Podcast. My name is Dave. I'm joined with my co-host Brandon, and today we have a super special guest returning to the show. We have Mr. Charles Band, the founder of Full Moon Productions, and he is here to talk about his newest film, Quadrant, which is set to premiere on August 23rd on Amazon Prime. Full Moon features Tubi, and it's available for purchase on Blu-ray, DVD, and what else, Charles?
Thank God you let me, at least give me a lead in. Well, I'm going to back up for 1 second. Thanks for that great intro. But we thought that it would be fun for people who follow these movies, all independent movies, because normally they get released on streaming first and download to own. And then they go out on the free sites like Tubi, where you have to sit through commercials. And then they go out on Blu-ray and DVD. And we thought, well, let's make it available day one across all platforms. So if you're into Tubi, you watch it on Tubi, you don't have to wait. You can download to own. You can see it on our site, fullmoonfeatures.com. And if you're into physical media, you can get it on Blu-ray, DVD, and even VHS. We're releasing the damn thing on VHS.
Oh man, that's awesome. I need to get a copy of that, so I've been stacking up my physical media collection with VHSs, so definitely need to add that. But I just want to say, Charles, welcome back to the show, man. Last time you were on the show, you were prepping up for your wedding, and so your team had sent over some cool pictures, and we seen you, all jazzed up. You had the Armani suit on, and a lot of cool things with the castle theme. You had Joe Bob Briggs. He was officiated for the ceremony, and so just want to say, welcome back, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and it feels like 10 years ago. It's weird how, if you live kind of hard, I mean, I'm not a crazy man. I'm just making movies and doing my thing, but it doesn't feel like just 6-7 months ago. It feels like at least a year ago. But what was also cool about the ceremony, other than the amazing guests, is behind us, when we were married, me and Robin, normally you would have an arch with flowers, the traditional wedding, whatever it's called, but we decided let's do something different. So we are vodka fans, and especially Belvedere. So we had a shrine of like 200 huge vodka bottles of Belvedere vodka, and that was, each one had flowers in it. So that was weird enough. And then later on, we had a number of Cirque du Soleil performers do stuff. And the one that really stole the show was a female contortionist who did a dance inside an 8-foot tall vodka martini glass. So,
oh my God,
to give you an idea of the event, but it was great. And Joe Bob and Darcy, I mean, Joe Bob was great coming and being there, and he had some real funny things to say. So it was entertaining and definitely different.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Also, speaking of Joe Bob and Darcy and Diana Prince, you just had that new film release, Barbie Kendra Crashed the Drive-In Jamboree.
Right.
What was that like, creating that film, that project?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that kind of, it seems like it was also a long time ago. It was like 2 weeks ago. So I made a movie at the beginning of the pandemic called Corona Zombies, which I'm really proud of. And it's about these ditzy girls who find this low-rent cable channel. There's an old Italian zombie movie. And what we did is we did what Woody Allen did decades ago with What's Up, Tiger Lily. We took out the track and put in real funny contemporary dialogue, also stuff that had to do with the silliness of what we were all going through at the time with COVID. We put in new music. Barbie, her character, is so ditzy that she, like many people, didn't know how to handle COVID. So as an example, she thought one thing that could prevent COVID is if she takes a shower fully dressed, which she does in the movie. So, it was that kind of zany, funny humor. And it did really well. I mean, for a small movie, got a lot of press. A lot of it not good either, because this was in the beginning of the pandemic, and people were, either they loved it and they saw the humor, or they would write, reviews like, "You Hollywood fucker, you're making fun of people, they're dying, how dare you." But, look back now, it's all ridiculous, the shit we went through, in spite of it also being, a terrible experience for many.
right.
Anyway, and then I thought, well, let's do this again. So then we made a movie called Barbie and Kendra Save the Tiger King. And that was when Tiger King was super popular. Everyone was watching Tiger King. And I wanted to get Joe, what was his name? Joe, I forget his name. The guy, the Tiger King.
Exotic Joe.
Yeah.
Joe Exotic.
Exotic
So
Joe.
the only I wanted to get him somehow for our movie. I figured I'd get him for one day, give him some money. Problem is he was in the slammer, right? So
Yeah.
Yep.
really get him out of the place. So I got what would be the second best. I got a fellow named John Reinke. John was the zookeeper in
Yeah.
Tiger King, if you remember. He's the
Yeah.
one that has the robot legs. So I got him in the movie, and I'm really proud of the film. Again, same idea. We got an old '60s Crown International movie about this little blonde boy who's lost in the jungle, and he gets into all sorts of trouble. So what we did is, again, took away the soundtrack, took away the dialogue, and we put in some really funny, crazy dialogue and new music, trying to tell the story of Joe Exotic as a little boy, the origin story of Joe Exotic. And it's actually, I think, absolutely freaking hilarious. And, Barbie and Kendra, again, they're watching another low rent channel that they find this movie on. It's called Big Pussy Network, of course. And yeah, so forth and so on. So now it's maybe a year ago, and we're talking with Joe Bob about the wedding, and he invited us to attend his drive-in jamboree that I don't know how many years he's done it, but it was in Vegas, I think in November.
Yep.
And he said, yeah, maybe you could set up a booth or do something fun there. And I thought, well, let's fucking make a movie. Forget a booth. Let's come up with a story. So we literally came up with a story where Barbie and Kendra are kind of bummed out. They don't know how to find a really good man. And they see a commercial for Joe Bob's drive-in jamboree in Vegas. They go, that's the man we want. So they get on a motorcycle and they drive to Vegas and attend the show. And then they get into all sorts of trouble and intrigue. And there's an evil chick who's trying to buy the land the drive-in's on. And anyway, so we sort of, put a story together that kind of worked along with the backdrop of this, whatever you want to call it, this jamboree convention. So we literally shot the movie for a day and a half during when they were performing, and people coming on stage, and Roger Corman, was there as well. So we shot the movie in and around the event. We had Joe Bob and Darcy in a number of scenes because there's a whole intrigue. But once again, all of this is sort of a through line to maybe 40-50% of the movie is the girls and some other people, mainly the girls in a hearse, Barbie and Kendra, watching some really bad drive-in movies that we put new dialogue into. So it's a zany, fun, it's everything you could want if you really want something incredibly lame and stupid and you smoke too much weed.
Nice. Now, Charles, you have a new production label called Pulp Noir, which focuses on edgier, weirder, darker horror, darker fantasy films. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, there are a number of projects I've been wanting to make for years, and the time seemed to be right to get into this darker vibe. By darker, I mean movies I've made like Castle Freak and Reanimator and From Beyond that are, pretty explicit, that still have really good stories. I'm not into just having blood and guts for the sake of grossing people out. If the story isn't different and clever, for me, there's no point in making the movie. And I don't want to be a copycat, haunted house movie. I don't know how many of those movies we can see. The theme's always a little different, but it's the same story. The people, something freaks them out. There's some little chick crawling on the ceiling. It's like, oh my God, I've seen this movie 8,000 times. So, I wanted to make a different series. And I also wanted to take advantage of the whole pulp noir or film noir vibe, because I'm a fan of those movies. So I selected some of the concept. I kind of vetted them with some friends, with some people over at Amazon and Tubi. I thought, okay, let me really dig in and not just produce these movies. Let me direct all of them, because I'm kind of ready to do that and put most of my energy into creating these 8 or 10 new movies. So Quadrant's the first one, comes out on the 23rd. I shot a second one, comes out about a month later. We're going to premiere the trailer tomorrow. It's called Death Streamer. Okay. Super happy with the way it turned out. It's about this decadent vampire in this opulent mansion. Of course, he takes the girls down to his kill room and not only, sucks their blood and kills them, but live streams their deaths. Oh. So it's got a real cool twist to it, which, and there's a reason for that. It's just not just gratuitous. Yeah. So, so the Quadrant label's cool. I told you how we're going to release these things. Another thing I'm doing is they're all going to be released a month or two after they come out in their original form and color on all the different platforms. I'm going to release the same movie in black and white. So in shooting these things, I've been able to, compose the shots and light the scenes in a way that work for color, but will also work for black and white, because that's kind of the part of the film noir deal. So it's going to be cool. It's a lot of work. I mean, it'll probably take a total of 2 years to make these movies, and they'll be out every probably couple months. But did you see Quadrant? I forgot if I asked you.
Yes. Yep. We saw Quadrant.
So what do you think?
Great film.
Yeah.
Dave, you want to go touch on
yeah,
it?
No, I one of the things that I loved about it was kind of like the mix match of themes that you have here. So I mean, obviously there's Jack the Ripper theme going on, you got a Dr. Jekyll theme going on, and then you mix that in with like something futuristic, like a Lawnmower Man type vibe. So it's just such an interesting film, because it mixes all these things. And I just was curious, like, could you tell us, like, where did this idea to like mix all these different influences?
Well, it's weird. I sometimes have concepts literally in my brain, or sometimes, on paper, or artwork that I've created for 40 years. So back in the 80s, there were a number of movies that I was not able to make when I had Empire. And one of them was called Quadrant. And if you find some of those old brochures or the stamps, I used to create stamps, or I did a couple decks of cards, and the cards all had the artwork of future movies. This is back in the 80s. You guys weren't even around. You were like, smokes. But and a lot of those movies I made, but several I didn't, and some have sort of just morphed into something different. So I had a concept piece of art and this title Quadrant, and the concept art was this weird submarine in this kind of underwater scene, and it said Quadrant. I forget the copy line, but the idea was it was kind of a haunted story, haunted submarine, people trapped in a submarine going through a different dimension. Anyway, never made that because it was kind of difficult and pricey at the time, but I love the title. And I've invented so many titles over the years. Every so often there's one that I haven't made, and then someone makes it. They use the title. You can't really copyright a title. You can make a movie, and once it's made, it's hard for someone to rip you off. So my most favorite story that I may not ever make unless I come up with a title that was equally as cool. As 20 years ago, I had a script written called Minions, and it was Minions, almost like a French restaurant sounding graphic or looking graphic. And the whole idea was it was a restaurant completely run and run by dwarfs. Okay. I mean, I'm into the dwarf little people thing, right? So dwarf waiters, pissed off dwarf cook, and people will come in. And if the patron was nasty, as some of them are, they would quickly disappear and get cooked into the beef stew or something. So I love the title so much, Minions, right? Because it sounds like a fancy French restaurant. Oh, let's go to Minions. And anyway, fuck it. One day Disney released a movie called Minions. I can't use that title anymore. But Quadrant, strangely enough, was never used. And it's a good title. So I changed it into something obviously completely different than a haunted submarine. But I love the idea. You mentioned some of the movies. Going back to a film, I think from the 80s called Altered States. Have you ever seen Altered States?
Yep.
Terrific movie if anyone hasn't seen it. In that case, it's a different vibe. But they go into a tank, and they go into this different sort of dimension. And then they went further because they also had a big budget where what was his name? The actor, fantastic actor. Anyway, he would come out, at one point in the altered state area. He becomes like I think a monkey or something, or a gorilla or something. Then he comes back in the real world as a fucking gorilla. Anyway, that movie stayed with me. And also thinking about what's going on today with the virtual reality and all these things and helmets and glasses, I thought, wouldn't it be a cool story to have some scientists who, in good faith, develop something they think can conquer your fears, right? If you go into there and from all the knowledge you have of whatever your fear is, spiders, monsters. In the case of the girl, she tricks him because she's not afraid of Jack the Ripper. She's obsessed with Jack the Ripper. And in the case of her, she tricks them. She goes back. She actually witnesses the death played out in this virtual weird world, the Quadrant world. And it totally inspires her. She comes back to the real world and starts killing victims. So I thought the thing was a cool idea. And I got a great writer, one of the best we've ever worked with, Courtney Joyner. He wrote movies like Puppet Master 3 and Dr. Mordred and Lurking Fear. And so he did the writing. I think the cast is great. I think they're all wonderful. I think the lead is freaky and creepy because you kind of like her, and then you realize she's chopping up other chicks and cutting up movies and things. And I thought The gal who played Meg is also wonderful.
Yeah.
Real credible. And Robert, the scientist. I mean, I think the whole cast is really good. So I'm proud of the movie. I mean, it's a low budget movie, but we had a little more money to spend than normal. And
they definitely did a good job.
Yeah, and the visuals and everything just looks great, you know. So that's one thing I like about the Full Moon Features films now. You like the productions and everything just looks great watching it on the big screen, you know. So definitely, man, great work on that. And Quadrant marks the studio's 400th film and release.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't know how that happened, but that's like crazy. So the 401st movie is called Death Streamer. You can see that trailer tomorrow. It turned to us the one about the vampire. Yeah, we're in the 400s.
Yeah, congratulations.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, you know, look, it's a two-way street for sure, and people like the movies. It makes me happy, and you know, we created a really robust Patreon program for Pulp Noir because it's almost impossible to make movies and make money today. So these are kind of all lost leaders in a sense, because again, the business kind of sucks, but people still love movies. So my hope is that they discover these films and, you know, they go to our site, they'll buy some merch, and, you know, they'll contribute to our Patreon program. And one tier in there is super cool. It's called the Head of the Family tier, of course, named after one of my favorite weirdo movies. Yeah. And then you can read about what it is, but you get really involved in the process of movie making on that tier. You get an executive producer credit on every Pulp Noir movie. You get a bunch of fun stuff. You know, it's a cool way to get involved a bit and kind of see a production from literally start to finish. So yeah, no, it's great. And the third Pulp Noir movie I'm shooting in Italy, I'm looking forward to this. It's a paranormal romance similar to a movie I made years ago called Meridian with Cheryl and Fenn. It's a good one. I don't know if you guys know. You guys are too young. You don't know shit about Cheryl.
Oh, are you kidding? From Twin Peaks? From Twin Peaks?
Yeah, Twin Peaks.
Oh, I love her. Yeah.
Okay, well then you know. So she was hot in the you know, she was,
I got the Playboy over here that she was
right. Before they stopped showing boobies. God, what a mistake that was. Anyway, no, Sherilyn is fantastic, and we shot that movie in Italy, and it's a real gothic, twisted romance, and we had a big hairy creature that bangs her. It's hard to say too much more, but it's a good one.
Boy.
So, yeah, exactly.
Charles, I know you got to take off. I just wanted to say one thing. As you were describing Quadrant, something popped into my mind. You basically just developed futuristic exposure therapy for people dealing with their fears. Like that is the premise here, but like that actually should be made. Like that is, as long as we can figure out a way to make it only for good, not for Jack the Ripper obsessed.
Well, I mean, again, not to spoil the movie. I think people enjoy it no matter what we say.
Yeah.
I hope. But like anything else, if technology is used incorrectly, falls into the wrong hands. You know, there are people who are doing that quadrant thing because they do have fears. You know, they're whatever it is, trying to cure the fears. The problem is our lead, who is our female serial killer. She tricks them, and she goes in there as a thrill ride. She goes in there to see more about Jack the Ripper killing people, and it turns her on so much that she goes out on a killing spree in the real world. So that's just an idea of how things that are technology, which is, you know, I would assume usually created for good, can also
And you also explored that theme with Amy previously with the use of AI. So it's nice to see that kind of like that thought going into it. But I just want to like point out, like, the thing that you've developed in Quadrant with the exposure therapy and using it is like the biggest barrier that we currently have to doing exposure therapy with patients. I as someone who uses this with patients, it's hard because I can't bring in everything that they're afraid of into my office to scare them with it. So like, genius idea. Use this.
Wait, are you a doctor or something?
Therapist. So at
times I didn't. Well,
I'll do stuff like
try showing some boobies.
I think that'll work.
I'll do that. That'll fix everything.
Okay. I'm sure some people are not going to be happy with that. Whatever. You know, at the end of the day, it's all in good fun. But maybe there is a theme there that but I'm sure people thought about it. But it is look, you know, the movies that work the best with crazy ideas are the ones where the ideas kind of have a ring of truth. And let's face it, things that we thought were sci-fi and weird 30, 40 years ago, like frickin' Star Trek. And we're all running around now. We're all like, we can't get beamed up yet, but we're able to communicate with the universe.
Yeah.
Vast amount of knowledge. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a Quadrant helmet one day and see what happens.
Let's hope.
Charles, one more thing, you know, because we had seen that Seed People had gotten a new release, remastered and everything like that. My wife's a big fan. Can we see a sequel to Seed People? Can we see another spinoff or something?
I don't want to disappoint your wife, but no. No more Seed People.
No more Seed.
You know, some of these movies over the years have gained sort of a cultish thing, but at the time they were released, they did not do well. I mean, you know, luckily the full moon movies all did pretty good because they're all pretty fun, and some did super good. Another movie that I keep being asked about that at the time no one cared about was called Bad Channels.
Oh yeah.
Bad Channels was pretty cool movie. Another one from the 80s is TerrorVision. It's another one that's
TerrorVision. Yeah.
Well, classic, but you got to make a buck to make the next movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And then there are movies like Head of the Family that there isn't a place I go to. When are you going to make Bride of the Head of the Family? What's wrong with you? God damn it. Which the cool thing about Head of the Family, for those who've seen it, is there's not one shot in there that's an effect shot. Every single shot in that movie is in camera, 35 millimeter, all forced perspective. Obviously, we didn't hire a guy with the head this big. That doesn't exist. But there's tricks that you can do with a lens and the camera. Forced perspective. You know, you put big head here, right? And then you have the little person way back here, and he looks like he's a big head. So it was tricky making that. So we had to build weird sets, but I love the movie. Also, it's just so fucking weird.
Yeah. Movie magic right there.
Anyway, thanks guys. Watch the Quadrant, check it out, and check out the trailer for Death Streamer. We should talk again in a month or two.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Charles, for coming on. August 23rd. Everybody prepare for Quadrant. See you later, everybody.
And buy the VHS. Why not?
Buy it. Yes.
I talked to a few people at the show that I was just at, and they said, I'm going to buy the VHS. I go, just curious, why? He said, it's cool. So what are you going to do with it? I said, you going to watch it? Fuck no. I threw my VHS machine out 10 years ago. I'm just going to put it on a shelf.
Display. Yeah, exactly.
Display. All right,
everybody.
Take it easy,
Thank
Charles.
you. Have a great night, everybody.